When the new inmate walked into the yard, every head turned. No tattoos, no fear, just calm, the kind of calm that made killers uncomfortable. Rex, the prison's most feared gang leader, saw it as disrespect. He'd built his power on fear, and now this quiet stranger threatened it without saying a word. The bullying started fast. Spilled food, threats, whispered insults. But what Rex didn't know was that this man had once trained world-class fighters. He was a retired MMA instructor, a man who'd mastered not just a fight, but himself. And when the day came that Rex finally pushed too far, the entire prison learned a lesson they'd never forget. That true strength doesn't come from dominance or rage, but from control, discipline, and the courage to rise above hate. This isn't just a story about violence. It's about redemption, and how one man's calm changed a world built on chaos. Welcome to Brainfuel, the place where stories ignite your spirit and open your mind. Here, every story burns with courage, wisdom, and the power to transform. So if you believe in strength through character, not just fists, hit that subscribe button, because today we fuel your brain with something unforgettable. The sound of the steel doors slamming shut was like thunder in a cage. Clang! It echoed to the long, narrow hallway, bouncing off concrete walls and disappearing into the endless hum of fluorescent lights above. The smell of bleach and sweat hung in the air. The silence after the slam was heavy, almost alive, like the building itself was holding its breath. A guard shouted, "Inmate 54762, Cole, Ethan, move forward." And that's when everyone in cell block D first saw him. Ethan Cole walked in slow, steady steps, not rushed, not nervous, just calm. His wrists were cuffed, his gray prison uniform neat and pressed, and his eyes, sharp, focused, quiet. He wasn't looking around like most new inmates did. He wasn't searching for danger, allies, or escape. He just walked, breathing evenly, as if he already understood every thread in the room. The other prisoners noticed that calm right away. When a man walks into prison for the first time, you can usually tell what he's made of. Some walk in shaking. Some puff their chests, trying to look tough. But Ethan, he didn't fit either type. There was something unsettling about his stillness. It wasn't arrogance. It was control. The kind that comes from experience, not ego. The cell block went quiet as he passed. Conversations froze mid-sentence. A deck of cards stopped midair. Even the TV in the corner suddenly felt muted by the tension. At one of the tables sat Rex Donovan, the white gang leader who ruled this block like a king without a crown. Tattoos crawl up his arms and neck, symbols of power, of territory. He was built like a boulder and had eyes that always looked like they were searching for someone to crush. When Rex saw Ethan, a slow grin spread across his scarred face. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded, and whispered to his right-hand man, "Fresh meat." Ethan walked by, silent. Rex tilted his head. "Hey, new guy, you forget how to say hello?" The guard escorting Ethan didn't even glance at Rex. He'd seen this movie too many times. The ruler testing the new blood. The only question was how long it would take before someone got hurt. Ethan stopped walking for the first time. He turned his head just slightly, his gaze meeting Rex's. For a moment, no one spoke. The tension was so thick, you could almost hear the heartbeat of the men watching. Then Ethan said, softly but clearly, "Hello." Just one word. Calm. Controlled. He didn't look away. Didn't blink. Then he turned and continued walking toward his assigned cell. That moment, that calm hello, was like lighting a fuse. Rex's smirk vanished. His jaw tightened. No one ever looked at him like that before. Most men either lower their eyes or talk back, trying to prove something. But this new guy, he didn't play the game at all. And that was what made him dangerous. As Ethan disappeared down the corridor, whispers filled the room. "Who is he? He doesn't look scared." Guy's either crazy or trained. Rex slammed his hand on the table. "We'll find out soon." Inside his new cell, Ethan placed a small stack of belongings, a toothbrush, a Bible, a few books, neatly on the shelf. His cellmate, a short man in his 20s named Leo, sat up from his bunk. "New guy, huh?" Leo asked cautiously. Ethan nodded once. "Yeah." Leo studied him. You're in D block. You must have done something serious. Ethan didn't answer. He wasn't the type to explain himself. After a moment, Leo sighed. Look, man, you seem cool, so I'll tell you this. Watch out for Rex. He runs this place. White gang leader, mean as hell, likes to test new guys. Ethan glanced at him, expression steady. I notice. Leo leaned closer. No, I mean really watch out. He's got 5 guys backing him up. They jump people, beat them till the guards dragged him out. Don't mess with him. Ethan gave a faint smile. I don't mess with anyone. Leo frowned, confused by the man's calm tone. You talk like you've been here before. Ethan looked at the concrete wall for a long moment before replying, different place, same rules. Then he sat on the lower bunk, closed his eyes, and began to breathe slow, controlled breaths, as if he were meditating in the middle of chaos. Leo couldn't understand it. How can anyone stay that calm on their first night inside this place? Across the block, Rex was pacing in his cell, still thinking about Ethan's eyes, those cold, confident eyes that didn't flinch. He turned to his lieutenant. Did you see that look he gave me? Yeah, the man chuckled. He's got balls. Rex shook his head. No, that wasn't balls. That was something else. He's hiding something. I can smell it. Rex's lieutenant laughed. You worried, boss? Rex glared at him. Worried? Nah, just curious. Nobody walks into my block with that kind of calm unless they've done some serious dirt. He smirked. And I plan on finding out exactly who he is. That night, the prison went dark. The sounds of coughing, snoring, and distant yelling echoed through the halls. Ethan sat on his bunk, eyes open, thinking. This wasn't his first time behind walls. But it was different now. He wasn't here to prove himself. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to survive quietly, to serve his time, to disappear. But something told him this place wouldn't let him stay invisible for long. His breathing slowed. Memories flashed, gloves hitting pads, the sound of crowd, his students shouting his name, the referee raising his hand after knockout. Then, a different memory, a fight gone wrong, a man on the floor, and the weight of guilt that led him here. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, no fighting, not anymore. But in a place like this, peace was a luxury no one could afford. And while Ethan tried to rest, in another cell, Rex was wide awake, planning. Tomorrow, the calm man would meet chaos. And the chaos had no idea what kind of storm was about to awaken. The next morning, the prison yard came alive with noise. The metallic clang of weights, the echo of footsteps on concrete, the buzz of conversations bouncing off razor wire fences. The sun hadn't even climbed halfway up the sky, but the air was already thick with tension and testosterone. Ethan stepped out into the yard, his uniform sleeves rolled halfway up, his calm expression unchanged. He wasn't walking fast nor slow, just steady. His eyes scanned the yard, not out of fear, but habit, observation, awareness. Years of training had taught him to see everything. The twitch of a hand, the shift in someone's stance, the difference between curiosity and danger. He saw Rex before Rex saw him. Rex was leaning against a chain-link fence, surrounded by his crew, all muscle, tattoos, and bad intentions. They watched Ethan like predators, sizing up prey that didn't seem to care. Leo, the young cellmate, hurried to catch up with Ethan. Hey, man, he whispered urgently. Don't go that way. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Why not? Leo lowered his voice. Because they hang out there. Rex and his guys. You don't want that kind of trouble on your second day. Ethan's tone stayed calm. Trouble only finds you if you go looking for it. Leo sighed, frustrated. No, man, here. Trouble finds everyone. Especially if you ignore Rex. He runs this block. You ignore him, he'll make an example out of you. Ethan stopped walking for a moment. His eyes focused on the group across the yard. Then I'll make sure he doesn't need to. And with that, he kept walking. Leo cursed under his breath. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the dumbest. Rex noticed him approaching and smirked. Well, look who decided to join the Sunshine Club. Ethan stopped a few feet away, hands at his sides. Just getting some air, Rex tilted his head. You know, new fish usually wait for an invitation before walking into someone else's yard. Ethan glanced at the cracked concrete beneath his boots. Didn't see your name on it. That line, delivered quietly, without even a hint of sarcasm, made Rex's men shift uncomfortably. No one talked to Rex like that. Rex chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You got a mouth on you, old man. You forget where you are. Ethan looked up, meeting his stare. No, I remember exactly where I am. Something in Ethan's eyes made Rex pause. They weren't defiant. They were just certain. It was the kind of confidence that didn't need to be proven, and that scared people like Rex more than fists ever could. Rex took a slow step forward. You see, around here, respect is earned, and you don't earn it by acting like you're better than everyone. I'm not better than anyone, Ethan said. I'm just not interested in playing games. Rex smiled, but his fist clenched slightly. This ain't a game, Cole. You eat when I say, you sit where I say, and you keep your mouth shut unless I let you open it. You got that? Ethan's voice was calm, steady as ever. Fear's a choice. I stopped choosing a long time ago. That single sentence hit the yard like a dropped grenade. Everyone nearby stopped what they were doing. Even the guards on the tower leaned slightly forward. Rex's smile vanished. He took another step closer, his shadow falling over Ethan. You got a death wish or something? Ethan didn't move. No, I've just seen men scarier than you fall to pieces when it mattered. Rex blinked, unsure whether he'd just been insulted or warned. You don't know who you're talking to. I don't need to, Ethan said quietly. Your eyes already told me. That was it, the line that burned through Rex's temper like a fuse. For a moment, no one breathed. Rex's right-hand man, Viper, whispered, Boss, not here. Guards are watching. Rex clenched his jaw, forcing himself to step back, though his rage was boiling. He leaned closer and muttered, You just bought yourself a lesson, old man. And trust me, you're going to learn it real soon. Ethan didn't reply. He just turned and walked away, his footsteps measured, controlled, his breathing calm. Rex's men exchanged nervous glances. They could feel it too. Something about this guy didn't fit. He wasn't bluffing, but he also wasn't provoking. It was like he'd been through this before 100 times, and he already knew how it would end. Later that day, in the cafeteria, Rex's crew made their first move. Ethan was sitting quietly at a corner table, eating slowly, his mind somewhere far away. The sound of trays, chatter, and boots on the floor filled the hall. Then, without warning, one of Rex's men accidentally bumped into him, knocking his tray to the floor. Oops, the man sneered. Didn't see you there, Gramps. Every nearby inmate turned to watch. Ethan stood, picked up the tray, and calmly placed it back on the table. No harm done. The man frowned. You're not going to apologize for being in my way? Ethan looked him dead in the eyes. You walked into me. The man's smirk faded. He didn't know how to respond to that level of composure. Usually, one shove and a few insults were enough to make someone lash out. But Ethan wasn't biting. He wasn't even interested. The guard nearby yelled, Keep it moving! And the tension broke for now. But word of exchange traveled fast. By dinner, everyone knew. The new guy had stood up to Rex's men and didn't even blink. That night, in the shower room, Leo caught up with Ethan again. You trying to get yourself killed? Ethan shook his head. No, I'm trying to live with some peace. Leo sighed. Peace? In this place? There's no peace here, man. You either join someone's crew or you get crushed. Ethan gave a faint smile. That's the problem. Everyone here thinks they need to belong to something to be safe. Leo frowned. You talk like a teacher or something. Ethan paused. Used to be. Before Leo could ask more, Rex entered the shower room with two of his men. The moment stretched. Their eyes locked again, calm versus chaos. Rex smirked. Enjoy your shower, old man. Tomorrow we talk again. But next time, you won't be walking away so easy. Ethan didn't react. He simply turned off the water, grabbed his towel, and walked past Rex, brushing his shoulder lightly as he passed. No fear, no aggression, just silent control. And that single, quiet walk past Rex did more damage than any punch could have done. Because in Rex's world, a world built on intimidation, silence was the loudest weapon of all. By the third day, the whole prison knew about the new guy, Ethan Cole. Word spread like wildfire through the cell blocks. That old dude stood up to Rex and didn't even flinch. He didn't even raise his voice. He looked Rex straight in the eyes and walked away like nothing. And that was exactly what Rex couldn't stand. In a place like Blackstone Penitentiary, power wasn't just about fists or knives. It was about control, about who could make others afraid. And fear was Rex's weapon of choice. He ruled with it, thrived on it. But now, a new guy had walked in, said a few words, and somehow managed to crack the foundation Rex had built for years. That kind of defiance couldn't go unpunished. The morning started quietly. Ethan was sitting in the mess hall, reading a worn-out paperback, a martial arts philosophy book, its pages yellow and edges bent from years of use. He wasn't reading to pass time. He was reading to stay balanced. In a world full of chaos, books were his anchor. Leo, his young cellmate, sat across from him nervously picking at his food. "You know they're watching you, right?" he whispered. Ethan didn't look up. They can watch all they want. Leo leaned closer. "You don't get it, man. Rex doesn't like people making him look weak. You embarrass him in front of everyone. He's not going to let that go." Ethan finally looked up, his calm eyes meeting Leo's. Letting go is the hardest thing for angry men to learn. Leo frowned. And what happens when they don't learn it? Ethan turned another page. Then they teach themselves the hard way. Leo groaned. "You talk like some kind of monk, man. But these guys, they're animals. They'll jump you when you least expect it." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Then I'll be ready when they do." By afternoon, Rex's plan was already in motion. In the yard, he gathered his closest guys, Viper, Deke, and Smoke, each one loyal, brutal, and itching for a fight. Rex's jaw clenched as he spoke. "I'm tired of this guy walking around like he owns the place. Nobody disrespects me in my house. You get me?" The men nodded. Viper asked, "You want us to rough him up?" Rex shook his head. "Not yet. I want him humiliated. Break that calm. Make him lose control. Once he cracks, then we'll break him." Deke grinned. "You want me to spill his food again?" Rex laughed. "No, that's too easy. Be smart about it. Push him just enough. Let him know who runs this yard." Smoke smirked. "Man doesn't talk much. Don't think he'll crack." Rex's expression darkened. "Everyone cracks. You just gotta hit the right nerve." He lit a cigarette, took a slow drag, and muttered, "We'll start small. Then we'll turn up the heat." The first test came during laundry duty. Ethan was sorting uniforms when Deke walked up and accidentally knocked over a full basket of wet clothes onto his shoes. "Oh, man, my bad," Deke said with a fake laugh. "Didn't see you there, Gramps." The other inmates nearby chuckled, waiting to see what Ethan would do. Ethan stared at the pile for a second, then calmly bent down and began picking up the clothes. No reaction. No anger. Deke frowned. "You not going to say something?" Ethan didn't look up. What would that change? Deke sneered. "It'd make you look like less of a coward." Ethan placed the last piece of clothing in the basket and finally stood up, looking him straight in the eyes. "Courage isn't about talking, son. It's about control." The word son hit Deke's pride hard. He stepped closer, his chest puffed. "You think you're better than me, huh?" Ethan's voice stayed level. "No, I think you could be better than you are." The tension in the room thickened. For a second, it looked like Deke might swing. But a guard entered, shouting, "Move it along!" and the moment broke. As the inmates scattered, Deke muttered under his breath, "You're dead, old man, dead." Ethan went back to folding laundry, calm, precise, unbothered. Later that night, Rex and his crew sat around a table in the common area. Deke slammed his fist down. He doesn't react to anything. It's like he doesn't feel fear. Viper scoffed. "Then maybe we hit something that does matter. Everyone's got a weakness." Rex's eyes narrowed. "Then find his..." Over the next few days, they tried everything. They spilled his drink, tore a page from his book, pushed him in line, even stole his pillow. Every time, Ethan stayed calm, collected, unshaken. And the more he stayed calm, the more angry Rex became. The inmates started noticing. They'd whisper when Ethan walked by, "Dude doesn't break. Rex keeps pushing, but he ain't biting. He's different." To some, Ethan was becoming a quiet legend. To others, he was a walking challenge. Rex could feel the balance of power shifting, not by force, but by silence. That terrified him, because in a place where men screamed, fought, and bled for dominance, Ethan's peace was louder than any war cry. One evening, as Ethan sat in the yard meditating, Rex finally approached him directly. He crouched beside him, voice low and venomous. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" Ethan opened his eyes slowly. "No, I think you're scared." Rex's jaw twitched. "Scared of you? Old man, I could crush you." Ethan nodded slightly. "You could try, but you'd only prove what I already know." Rex frowned. "And what's that?" "That you don't understand power," Ethan said quietly. "You confuse fear with respect. They're not the same." Rex's hand twitched toward Ethan's shirt, but then he stopped. The look in Ethan's eyes wasn't defiance. It wasn't challenge. It was knowledge. And in that moment, Rex realized something unsettling. Ethan wasn't trying to win. He wasn't even playing. That kind of man was dangerous. Later that night, in his cell, Rex punched a wall hard enough to split his knuckles. Blood smeared across the concrete. Viper rushed in. "Boss, what's the plan?" Rex gritted his teeth. "No more games. We finish this tomorrow." Viper hesitated. "You sure?" "The guards." "I don't care," Rex snapped. "We'll find a way. Gym's empty after breakfast. No cameras, no eyes. We'll end it there." Viper nodded slowly, a cold grin spreading across his face. "You wanted to tell the boys?" Rex's eyes glimmered with fury. "Yeah, tell em to bring the pain. Tomorrow, the old man learns who runs this place." But little did Rex know, the man he planned to humiliate wasn't just another inmate. He was a retired MMA instructor who had spent a lifetime teaching others how to fight, not just with their bodies, but with their minds. And tomorrow, Rex was about to learn that lesson the hard way, because calm doesn't mean weakness, and silence is often a sound before a storm. The prison morning started the same way it always did. Metal doors slamming, guards barking orders, and hundreds of men shuffling into line like a machine made of flesh and noise. But beneath the routine, something felt different that day. The air was tighter. The stares lasted longer. Even the sound of boots on the concrete floor seemed heavier, sharper, like the whole place was holding its breath for something that hadn't happened yet. Ethan felt it the moment he stepped out of the cell. His instincts had been honed by years in cages of a different kind, octagons, training gyms, and fight circuits where silence before a match always meant one thing. A storm was coming. He didn't show it, of course. His face stayed calm, the same unreadable mask he wore every day. But inside, his senses were quietly alert. Every move, every look, every shift in the yard was being logged in his head like pieces of a puzzle forming a picture he already knew too well. Leo walked beside him, whispering, "Man, you hear the talk? Rex's crew's been working out all night. Something's up." Ethan kept walking. "Something's always up." Leo frowned. "No, seriously, I heard they're clearing the gym after breakfast. No guards for an hour. That never happens unless somebody paid someone off." Ethan gave a slow nod. "Then I'll stay ready." Leo's voice dropped lower. "You don't have to fight them, Ethan. You could tell the guards." Ethan stopped walking and turned to face him. "You ever see what happens to a man who runs to the guards here?" Leo looked away. "Yeah, he don't last long." Ethan's tone softened. "Exactly. You survive here by facing what comes, not by avoiding it." Across the yard, Rex was already setting his plan into motion. He stood in the corner of the gym, the light from the small window cutting across his face. His men surrounded him, Viper, Deacon, Smoke, the usual pack. But today they weren't laughing. Today they looked serious. Rex flicked the ash from a cigarette and said, "Everything's ready?" Viper nodded. "Gym's ours from 9 to 10. I slipped the guard $50 and a carton of smokes. He's going to take his coffee break, right when we start." Rex smirked. "Good. What about the cameras?" Smoke grinned. "Down for maintenance. Guess someone tripped a wire last night." Rex clapped his hands together once, the sound echoing in the empty gym. "Perfect. Then today we remind everyone who runs this place." Deke cracked his knuckles. "You want us to go all in?" Rex stared at him. "No killing. Just a message. I want him broken, humiliated. I want every man in this block to see that calm look wiped off his face." He took a step closer, his voice dropping lower. "He made me look weak, boys. You don't come back from that unless you spill blood." Viper leaned against the wall. "He's old, Rex. He'll fold fast." Rex's jaw tightened. "You don't get it. The old ones are the dangerous ones. They've been through hell already and they survived. You got to crush them completely or they get back up." The men nodded. They'd seen that look in Rex's eyes before, the look that came right before someone got hurt badly. Breakfast came and went. Ethan ate quietly, eyes down, ears open. He could feel them watching from across the hall. Every move, every sip of water, every motion was being studied. He wasn't paranoid. He was prepared. When the bell rang and the guards began leading inmates to their morning duties, Viper called out loudly, "Hey, old man, you hitting the gym today? You look like you could use a stretch." A few nearby inmates laughed. Ethan looked up, his expression calm. "Exercise keeps the mind clear." Viper smirked. "Good. You'll need that clarity." He walked off before Ethan could answer. Leo leaned over. "Don't go, man. You know it's a setup." Ethan stood slowly, wiping his hands on a napkin. "If I run now, I'll be run the whole time I'm here." Leo's voice cracked with fear. "You don't owe anyone a fight, Ethan." Ethan placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "I don't fight for ego, Leo. I fight for peace." Leo blinked, confused. "That doesn't make sense." Ethan gave a faint smile. "It will." Then he turned and walked toward the gym. Inside, the place was eerily quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off the dull metal bars of the weight racks. The smell of sweat and rust filled the air. Ethan stepped inside slowly, every movement deliberate. He could feel eyes watching him from the shadows, not just one pair, but several. He dropped his towel on the bench and started his warm-up. Slow stretches, breathing steady movement, smooth and precise. Rex's crew watched from behind a stack of mats, waiting for Rex's signal. "Now!" Deke whispered. "Not yet," Rex murmured. "Let him think he's safe." Ethan bent down, tied his shoe tighter, and that's when he noticed the mirrors at the far wall had faint fingerprints smeared across them, the kind left by someone hiding behind partition. He didn't turn his head, but his breathing changed slightly. Quieter, slower, deeper. A trained fighter's instinct. He knew, but he didn't run. Outside, Leo paced nervously in the corridor, peeking through the small glass window. He could see Rex's men closing in. "Oh, no. Oh, no, they're going to jump him," he muttered. A guard strolled by, sipping coffee. "Move along, inmate." Leo swallowed hard, torn between warning Ethan and protecting himself. In prison, loyalty could get you killed, but so could silence. Finally, he whispered under his breath, "Please be as good as I think you are, old man." Inside the gym, Rex finally gave a nod. The first man stepped out, Deke blocking the exit. Then smoke appeared on the other side, cracking his knuckles. Viper moved to the corner, pretending to adjust weights, but his eyes were locked on Ethan. Rex emerged last, slow and confident, his footsteps echoing like a drumbeat. "Well, look who showed up at train," he said. "Didn't think you'd actually come." Ethan didn't stop stretching. "You invited me." Rex smirked. "Yeah, well, I figured I'd give you a proper welcome." Ethan's eyes flicked briefly to the exits, all blocked. Seems like a lot of men for one welcome. Rex chuckled. "We're friendly like that." The other inmates nearby sensed what was coming and began backing away, pretending not to notice. Nobody wanted to get involved when Rex was in a mood. Ethan straightened up slowly, hands loose at his sides. "You sure you want to do this, Rex?" Rex raised an eyebrow. "You scared?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I just don't want to embarrass you again." That line hit Rex like a spark to dry grass. His smirk vanished. His jaw clenched. He turned to his men. Teach him some respect. And as the first punch was thrown, time seemed to slow. Ethan's eyes sharpened, calm fading into focus. His body, one still, moved with lightning precision. Years of training were about to meet years of arrogance head-on. The storm had officially begun. The air in the gym froze. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade away as Deke lunged first. A wild punch aimed straight at Ethan's jaw. The big man's fist sliced through the air with a whoosh. But Ethan moved with the calm precision of someone who had lived his entire life inside moments like this. He didn't step back, he shifted. Just a smooth, controlled pivot to the side, letting Deke's momentum carry him forward. With the same motion, Ethan's elbow came up sharply, catching Deke in the ribs. The sound was soft, thud, but the effect was instant. Deke gasped, stumbled, and crashed into the weight rack behind him, dumbbells clattering across the floor. Rex's men blinked, surprised. Ethan hadn't looked angry. He hadn't even looked excited. His expression stayed almost peaceful, like a man finishing a routine he practiced 1,000 times. That calmness was worse than rage. It was terrifying. Smoke growled, "You think you can take us all, old man?" Ethan didn't answer. His eyes flicked between them, reading body language, stance, weight distribution. Every detail told him what was coming before it happened. Smoke charged, swinging wide. Ethan ducked under the punch, grabbed Smoke's wrist, and twisted. The movement was fluid, effortless. Smoke howled as his own arm was used against him. Ethan swept his leg, tripping him, and Smoke went down hard, hitting the mat with a grunt. Before Smoke could move, Ethan pressed his foot gently against his chest, not crushing him, just containing him. "Stay down," Ethan said quietly. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. But Rex's men weren't the kind who listened to warnings. Viper came from behind, wrapping his arms around Ethan's neck in a chokehold. For a second, it looked like he had him. Viper's muscles bulged, veins standing out on his forearms as he gritted his teeth and squeezed. But then Ethan dropped his weight, twisting his hips. With a smooth motion, he slipped free, grabbed Viper's arm, and flipped him over his shoulder. Viper hit the ground so hard the breath flew out his lungs. 3 seconds. 3 men down. Rex's smirk had disappeared. The calm confidence on Ethan's face made his blood boil. "Enough!" he roared, and charged forward himself. Ethan finally looked at him, really looked, and that was when the tone changed. This wasn't just another inmate fight anymore. This was a duel. Rex was no amateur. Years in prison had hardened him. He fought with brutal strength, no form, no grace, just raw power. His punches were heavy, his stance wide, his rage pure. He swung, again and again, forcing Ethan backward. For the first time, Ethan blocked instead of dodging. Each hit landed on his forearms, each one strong enough to make lesser men crumble. But Ethan's footing was solid. His eyes stayed locked on Rex's, studying, analyzing, waiting. Rex grunted, throwing a haymaker. Ethan ducked low and countered with a quick jab to the gut, a single, precise strike that stopped Rex in mid-swing. The sound was dull but final. Rex's breath hitched. He stumbled back, holding his stomach, confusion flashing across his face. What are you?" he gasped. Ethan's tone was calm. Someone who's had enough of violence. Rex snarled, "You talk too much." He lunged again, grabbing a metal dumbbell from the floor. The heavy weight whistled through the air as he swung. Ethan sidestepped just in time, the dumbbell smashing into a weight rack with a metallic crash that echoed through the gym. Ethan's patience snapped. He moved fast, faster than anyone expected for a man his age. His hand shot out, catching Rex's wrist mid-swing, twisting it outward. The dumbbell clanged to the floor. Then Ethan's leg swept out, hooking behind Rex's knee. With one clean motion, he took Rex down. The gang leader hit the mat flat on his back. The wind knocked clean out of him. The room went dead silent. Rex tried to rise, but Ethan was already kneeling beside him, one hand pressed lightly against his chest. He didn't hit him again. He didn't need to. His voice, calm and steady, carried more weight than any punch. "You think strength is about fear," Ethan said softly, "but fear fades. Respect lasts." Rex's eyes burned with hate, but beneath it was something new, recognition. He spat blood to the side. You're not just some old guy." Ethan stood, offering no answer. Then Viper groaned from the floor. "Rex, man, what do we do?" Rex sat up slowly, his breathing ragged. He looked around. His crew, all of them down, wheezing, holding their ribs or shoulders. The sight twisted something inside him. He wanted revenge. But he wasn't stupid. Ethan's technique, his precision, his composure, it was something Rex had never seen before. Something that didn't belong to a street brawler. That kind of control came from years of discipline. "You were military?" Rex asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. "MMA." The word hung in the air like thunder. Viper blinked. "Wait, like mixed martial arts?" Ethan gave a small nod. Deke, still clutching his side, groaned, "Holy hell, you're one of those guys." Ethan didn't confirm or deny. He simply walked to the water fountain, took a sip, and said without turning, "This ends here. No grudges, no revenge. You leave me and my friend alone, and I'll forget this ever happened." The men exchanged glances. Even Rex didn't move. For the first time since he'd entered prison, someone had stripped his power without humiliating him, by showing control instead of dominance. That confused him more than defeat. Ethan started to leave, but before he reached the door, he turned slightly and added, "One more thing. If you want to survive this place, stop trying to be feared. Start trying to be respected." Then he walked out. Outside, Leo was waiting nervously, his heart pounding. When Ethan stepped through the door, calm and unscathed, Leo's eyes widened. "You okay? What happened?" Ethan gave a faint smile. "They learned a lesson." Leo grinned nervously. "You didn't kill them, did you?" Ethan chuckled softly. "No, just reminded them that peace isn't weakness." Leo exhaled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Man, you're something else." Ethan looked back through the small gym window. Inside, Rex sat on the floor, staring at his hands, his knuckles bruised, his pride cracked. The other inmates around him whispered, their expressions changing from mockery to awe. The balance in the prison had just shifted, and everyone knew it. Ethan walked away quietly, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. He didn't look back. For him, the fight had ended long before the first punch was thrown. By the next morning, the entire prison knew. Rumors traveled faster than smoke in a locked room. Inmates whispered about the old man who dropped Rex, the same Rex who once broke a man's jaw just for looking at him wrong. The story twisted and grew with each retelling. Some said Ethan moved like a ghost. Others swore he didn't even throw punches, that he just stood there while Rex's gang fell one by one. By breakfast, men were leaning over trays, whispering, "You hear what happened in the gym? Rex got folded by some grandpa." "Nah, man, they say he used to be a fighter, like pro level." Every table buzzed with it. And for once, the noise in the dining hall wasn't fear of Rex's crew. It was curiosity about Ethan. Leo sat across from him, grinning nervously. "You're like a celebrity now, man. You realize that, right?" Ethan took a slow sip of water. "Not the kind of fame I want." Leo shook his head. "Still, you made history." Nobody ever stood up to Rex and walked away. Ethan's gaze stayed steady, quiet. "That's the problem, Leo. Everyone's so busy trying to survive, they forget what living means." Leo frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ethan gave a faint smile. "It means you can survive by fear, or you can survive by respect. One fades faster than the other." Across the hall, Rex sat at his usual table. But the difference was striking. The seats that were normally full of his men were mostly empty. Only Viper sat nearby, eyes low, picking at his food. Smoke and Deke hadn't shown up. Word was they were still recovering. Rex's jaw clenched as he watched Ethan. He wasn't used to being ignored, and he wasn't used to being pitted. Later that day, in the yard, groups of inmates lingered longer than usual, glancing toward Ethan as he did his quiet push-ups and pull-ups in the corner. There was something hypnotic about the way he moved, every motion efficient, every breath controlled. No wasted energy, no showing off, just quiet, disciplined strength. A young inmate, maybe 19, walked up hesitantly. His name was Marcus, small, thin, eyes darting nervously. Hey, you're the guy from the gym, right? Ethan didn't stop. I'm the guy trying to finish his workout. Marcus laughed awkwardly. Yeah, sorry. I heard what you did. Rex had it coming, man. You don't know how many people he's hurt. Ethan paused, then sat up, wiping sweat from his face. And now they'll look to me? Marcus blinked. Well, yeah, kinda. You could run this place if you wanted. Ethan gave a low chuckle. That's the last thing I want. Marcus tilted his head. Then what do you want? Ethan looked toward the tall, sun-bleached wall surrounding the yard. To leave this place without becoming like them. The word sank into Marcus like a slow burn. He nodded, unsure what to say, and walked off, but not before glancing back with a look of quiet admiration. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But something had shifted. Inside, Rex was losing control, not just his gang, but of himself. He sat in his cell, staring at the concrete wall, his mind replaying the fight over and over. Every movement, every counter, every second where Ethan's eyes stayed calm while his own filled with rage. Viper paced outside the cell. Forget him, Rex. Everyone's talking, yeah, but it'll blow over. We just need to remind them who's boss. Rex looked up slowly. You don't get it, do you? That man wasn't scared. He should have been, but he wasn't. Viper frowned. So what? You want another shot? Rex's jaw tightened. No, not yet. You can't fight someone like that with fists. He doesn't fight for pride. He fights for peace. Viper blinked. Peace? In prison? Rex gave a cold laugh. Exactly. That's what makes him dangerous. He turned away, voice low. You can't be a man who's not afraid to lose. Meanwhile, life inside the cell block began to subtly change. The daily shouting matches lessened. The fights in the yard dropped off. Inmates started giving Ethan respectful nods instead of mocking smirks. Some even asked for advice about training, about breathing, about how to stay calm when everything felt like it was closing in. Ethan never preached. He just shared small truths. When one inmate said, I don't want to fight anymore, Ethan told him, then learn to control your hands before you control your anger. When another asked, how'd you stay calm in that fight, he answered, I didn't fight the man. I fought my own fear. These simple sentences rippled through the prison like quiet thunder, and soon even the guards noticed. One afternoon, Officer Barnes, a grizzled veteran with 20 years inside those walls, stopped by Ethan's cell. Word is, you're some kind of miracle worker, he said, half smiling. Ethan looked up from his bunk. I'm just someone who's been broken enough times to know how to rebuild. Barnes studied him. You keep this up, you might make this place a little less ugly. Ethan chuckled softly. One day at a time. But not everyone was ready for change. A few of Rex's loyalists, desperate to restore their reputation, cornered Leo one evening near the laundry room. Your buddy thinks he's untouchable, one of them sneered. Tell him his peace talks are over. They shoved Leo against the wall, but before they could do worse, a voice came from behind them. Walk away, Ethan said. The men froze. Ethan stood there, calm as ever, arms crossed, gaze steady. There was no threat in his tone, just quiet authority. One of them, bolder than the rest, spat on the floor. You think we're scared of you just 'cause you drop Rex? Ethan took a slow step forward. I don't care if you're scared. I care if you make the wrong choice. The men exchanged uneasy glances, then slowly backed off. They muttered curses under their breath, but didn't look back. The moment they were gone, Leo exhaled shakily. Man, they were gonna... I know, Ethan said. You okay? Leo nodded weakly. Yeah, thanks. Ethan looked at him firmly. You don't need me to protect you, Leo. You just need to stop fearing people who thrive on fear. Leo nodded again, but this time there was something new in his eyes. Understanding. That night, in the dim light of his cell, Ethan sat on his bunk, staring at the small, cracked mirror on the wall. His reflection looked older than he remembered, lines deeper, eyes wearier. He thought about his old life, the MMA cages, the crowds chanting his name, the violence he once glorified. And now, here he was, in another kind of cage, learning that peace was harder to earn than victory. Outside his cell, he heard Rex's deep voice talking quietly to someone, not yelling, not threatening, just talking. And for the first time since Ethan arrived, it didn't sound angry. Ethan leaned back, closed his eyes, and whispered to himself, maybe change doesn't come from winning fights, but from ending them. And as the prison lights dimmed to black, the sound of silence filled the block, not from fear, but from the rarest thing inside those walls, respect. A week had passed since the fight, and the prison's rhythm had subtly changed. There were fewer outbursts, fewer hallway scuffles. Even the guards noticed that tension had loosened its grip. But beneath the calm, something else was brewing. Something quieter, deeper, and more personal. Rex couldn't get Ethan out of his head. Every night, he replayed that moment. The way Ethan had looked at him without fear, without anger, almost like a teacher watching a stubborn student finally learn a hard lesson. It ate at him. He wasn't used to losing, and he definitely wasn't used to respecting the man who beat him. He needed answers. One morning during yard time, Rex approached Ethan. No entourage, no backup, no threats. Just him. The other inmates froze. You could have heard a pin drop. Leo tensed immediately, whispering, "He's coming over. You wanted to get the guard." Ethan shook his head calmly. No need. Rex stopped in front of him, his shadow falling across Ethan's bench. Mind if I sit? Ethan shrugged. Free country. Well, sort of. Rex gave a low chuckle and sat down. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The sounds of clinking weights and distant shouts filled the silence. Finally, Rex broke it. You know, I've been in this place 8 years. Met every type of man there is. Snitches, killers, soldiers, liars. But I never met one like you. Ethan didn't look at him. That's probably a good thing. Rex smirked faintly. Yeah, probably is. He paused. You embarrass me, you know. Ethan nodded. You embarrass yourself. I just happened to be standing there. That earned a small, genuine laugh from Rex. The first real one anyone had heard from him in years. You got balls, I'll give you that. I've had enough broken bones to earn them, Ethan replied. Rex leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You're not like the rest of us. You don't talk like a criminal. You don't move like one either. So what's your deal, huh? You military? Cop? What? Ethan shook his head. None of those. I used to teach people how to fight. MMA, self-defense, discipline. Rex raised an eyebrow. Discipline? That's rich coming from a guy in here with the rest of us. Ethan's voice was steady. Even disciplined men make mistakes. The difference is how they handle them. That line landed heavier than Rex expected. For a second, he looked away, jaw tightening. Yeah, well, some of us don't get second chances. Ethan looked at him calmly. Then make this one count. Later that afternoon, Rex showed up again, this time with a different tone. Come with me, he said simply. Ethan eyed him cautiously. Where? Rex smirked. You'll see. They walked through the yard, through a small maintenance gate that Rex's crew had borrowed access to, and down into an unused laundry room. Inside were 3 men, new inmates, fresh faces, tough postures. They looked like they were itching to prove themselves. One of them, a wiry guy with tattoos up his neck, said, "This the guy? The old fighter?" Rex nodded. Yeah, this is him. Ethan crossed his arms. So what's this about? Rex turned to him. Consider this a test. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Of what? Loyalty, Rex said. See, these 3 think I've gone soft since you embarrassed me. They think I lost my edge. I want to show them I didn't. Ethan's eyes narrowed. So you wanted to fight them? Rex shook his head slowly. No, I want you to hit one of them. Ethan stared at him. Why? Rex's smirk faded. Because if you hit him, they'll fall in line. You'll show them I still have control, that even the guy who beat me respects me. Ethan didn't move. His silence filled the room like thunder. Rex stepped closer. I'm giving you an out, old man. You don't even have to hurt him bad. Just one hit. Ethan looked at the young men. None of them met his eyes. They were scared, not of him, but of what saying no to Rex would mean. He turned back to Rex. You're not testing loyalty, Rex. You're testing obedience. Rex frowned. What's the difference? Ethan's tone hardened slightly. Loyalty is earned. Obedience is taken. The words sliced through the air. One of the younger inmates whispered, Damn. Rex's expression darkened. You're saying no? Ethan nodded once. I don't raise my hand unless it's to stop someone else's. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Then, unexpectedly, Rex smiled, not a smirk this time, but a small, almost respectful smile. All right, he said quietly. You passed. Ethan tilted his head. Passed. Rex nodded. You could have taken the easy road. Most men would have. I just needed to see if you were real. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. And now that you know? Rex gave a small shrug. Now I stopped seeing you as a threat. Over the next few days, a strange alliance began to form. Rex didn't stop being who he was, a hardened survivor, a man shaped by years of violence. But his approach changed. He stopped extorting the weak. He stopped starting fights just to prove a point. And while nobody would have dared say it aloud, everyone knew why. Ethan had changed him, or at least started to. At lunch one afternoon, Leo whispered to Ethan, You realize Rex hasn't caused trouble all week? It's like you flipped a switch in him. Ethan shrugged. People don't change overnight, Leo. They just remember who they were before life broke them. Leo grinned. That's deep, man. Ethan smiled faintly. It's true. That night, as lights out echoed to the halls, Rex found himself standing by Ethan's cell. He leaned against the bars, arms crossed. I don't get you, he said softly. Ethan looked up from his bunk. What don't you get? Rex shook his head. You could have run this whole block by now. You got everyone's respect, even the guards. Why don't you take it? Ethan studied him for a long moment, then said, Because I'm not here to rule anyone. I'm here to leave better than I came. Rex smirked. You talk like a monk. Maybe I'm just tired of being a fighter. Rex chuckled. That's funny, because you've done more fighting here than anyone. Ethan's eyes softened. Fighting's not always about fists. Rex nodded slowly, finally understanding what he meant. As the guards dimmed the lights and the hum of the prison quieted, Rex turned to leave, but before he did, he said something no one would have ever expected to hear from him. You're a strange man, Ethan, but maybe this place needs a few more like you. Ethan didn't reply. He didn't have to. The faint smile on his face said enough. For the first time in years, Rex walked back to his cell, not thinking about power, but about respect. For almost 3 weeks, the cell block had been quieter than anyone could remember. The fight stopped. The shouting lessened. Even the guards had relaxed, leaning against railings with their coffee instead of clutching their batons. People whispered that Ethan and Rex had brought some kind of balance, a strange peace born from an unlikely alliance. But peace in prison never lasts long, not when power is currency. It started with a new transfer, a tall, lean man named Cutter. He arrived with the kind of grin that only belonged to troublemakers. The moment the gates opened, everyone could sense it, that wild, hungry energy of a man who wanted chaos. Cutter had done time before, in harder places, and he carried himself like it. Within hours, he'd found Rex's old crew and started stirring the ashes. He whispered things in the yard. You let an old man make you soft? And Rex used to run this place. Now he takes orders from a monk. At first, Rex ignored it. He'd changed. Or at least, he thought he had. But Cutter knew how to find cracks. On the 3rd day, Rex found one of his men, Viper, nursing a black eye near the showers. Who did that? Rex demanded. Cutter. Viper muttered, embarrassed. Said I'm following a washed-up boss. Rex clenched his fists. You hit him back? Viper hesitated. Didn't want to start nothing. Thought you'd changed. Those words hit Rex harder than a punch. Thought you'd changed. It wasn't an insult. It was an accusation. That night, Rex sat on his bunk, staring at the wall. Change. The word rolled around in his head like gravel. He'd stopped breaking bones. Yeah, he'd stopped running the block like a dictator. But was that really change, or just submission? He thought about Ethan, calm, centered, respected. People listened to him now more than they ever did to Rex. Guards, inmates, even staff nodded at Ethan when he passed. And deep down, that burned. He wasn't jealous. Not exactly. He just didn't understand how someone could command so much respect without using fear. The next morning, Cutter made his move. He waited until breakfast, until the noise in the cafeteria was loud enough to hide his voice. Then, with a loud laugh, he said, Hey, Rex. Word is, you take orders from your sensei now. That true? The hall went silent instantly. Forks clattered. Trays froze midair. Ethan looked up from his seat across the room. His eyes met Rex's, calm, watchful. Rex forced a smile. You got a death wish, Cutter? Cutter grinned wider. Nah, just wondering if the big bad wolf forgot how to bite. The room waited. Every man there knew this was it. The test. If Rex backed down, his reputation would die for good. Ethan's voice broke through the tension. Let it go, Rex. He's not worth it. But Cutter wasn't done. He stepped closer, voice low, but venomous. You let an old man fight your battles? Guess you really did get tamed. That was a spark. Rex slammed his tray down, metal clanging like a gunshot. He grabbed Cutter by the shirt, pulling him close. Say that again. Cutter didn't flinch. I said you're a coward. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The guards tensed near the doors, ready to intervene. Ethan stood, calm but firm. Rex, he said quietly, you walk away now, you win. Rex's breathing was heavy. He disrespected me, Ethan. Ethan met his eyes. No, he tested you. Don't let him decide who you are. The words hung in the air, heavy, simple, true. Then, slowly, Rex released Cutter. The room gasped. He turned, picked up his tray, and walked away. Cutter laughed loudly, shoving him in the back. That's what I thought. You're done. Ethan's hand moved before anyone saw it. He caught Cutter's wrist mid-swing, his voice steady. Don't. For the first time, Cutter's grin faltered. There was something in Ethan's eyes. Not anger, not fear, but kind of quiet warning that made even hard men hesitate. Sit down, Ethan said softly. Cutter glared, but his instincts told him the truth. This was not a man to test lightly. He yanked his hand free and backed away, muttering curses under his breath. Later that day, in the yard, Rex walked up to Ethan. His pride was raw. You made me look weak, he said flatly. Ethan looked up from his push-ups. No, Rex. I stopped you from proving Cutter right. Rex scowled. You don't get it. Respect here doesn't come from patience. Ethan stood. Respect anywhere comes from control. You think strength means doing whatever you want? It means choosing not to. Rex stared at him, chest heaving. You think I'm scared? Ethan shook his head. I think you're better than you used to be, but you're still fighting the wrong war. Those words landed deeper than Rex wanted to admit. He turned and walked away, fists clenched. But as he left, he heard something, small groups of inmates talking quietly, saying things like, Rex didn't fall for it, and maybe he's really changed. For the first time, respect didn't come from fear. It came from restraint. And that realization cut through his anger like a blade. That night, Cutter met with 2 guards behind the kitchen, the kind of guards who looked the other way for the right price. He slid them a pack of cigarettes and whispered, Tomorrow, gym duty. Make sure you're not there. They exchanged glances but didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. Cutter wasn't finished with Rex or Ethan. The next morning, Ethan felt in the air again, that same pressure from the day of the first ambush. Something was off. Leo noticed too. Man, you feel that? Like the storm's back. Ethan nodded slightly. Yeah, and this time, it's not just about me. When he walked into the gym, he found Cutter waiting, and behind him, a small circle of inmates from different gangs. The crowd wasn't cheering or taunting this time. They were watching, curious to see what would happen. Cutter grinned. No guards, no cameras. Just you, me, and the truth. You up for round 2, old man? Ethan didn't answer. He looked past Cutter to Rex, standing on the far side, watching silently. Their eyes met. This was the real test. Not of Ethan's fighting skills, but of Rex's loyalty. Would he step up for chaos or for change? Cutter spat on the floor. Guess not. He started walking toward Ethan. And then, before he could take another step, Rex's voice thundered across the gym. Enough! The room froze. Even Cutter stopped. Rex walked forward, eyes blazing. You want to prove you're tough? Fine. Fight me. Cutter smirked. Oh, I plan to. But before anything could happen, Ethan stepped between them. No more fights, he said quietly. This ends here. Rex's voice cracked with emotion. You can't stop every fight, Ethan. Ethan met his eyes. Maybe not, but I can stop you from becoming the man you used to be. The silence was deafening. Cutter sneered, backing off slightly, realizing the crowd wasn't with him anymore. Nobody cheered for violence. Nobody laughed. They just stared, waiting to see if restraint could really be stronger than rage. Rex lowered his fists. Cutter cursed, shoved a bench over, and stormed out. Ethan exhaled slowly. You made the right choice. Rex's jaw tightened. Feels like the hardest thing I've ever done. Ethan nodded. That's how you know it's right. That night, as the lights dimmed, word spread again, not about a fight, but about the fight that didn't happen. And somewhere deep inside, the prison itself seemed to change just a little. Not because violence had vanished, but because for once, self-control had won. A week passed after the confrontation in the gym, but its echoes still haunted every corner of Cell Block C. For the first time in years, there was no talk of fights, debts, or revenge. Instead, people whispered about something different, a thing most of them hadn't felt in forever. Respect. Ethan's quiet discipline had spread like wildfire. Every morning, before the yard filled with chaos, a small circle gathered near the rusted pull-up bars. Ethan led stretching drills, breathing exercises, and balance training. At first, only 2 or 3 joined. Leo, an older inmate named Ramos, and eventually Rex, who stood awkward at the back, his hands in his pockets. The guards didn't interfere. Some even lingered to watch, curious how a single man had turned a prison full of angry, broken people into something almost peaceful. But Cutter hadn't forgotten. He watched in the shadows, his face tightening every time he saw inmates nodding respectfully at Ethan, or worse, at Rex. Cutter was used to chaos, not order. He thrived on fear. Watching that slip away from his grip was like watching sand drain through his fingers. And when people stopped listening to him, he decided to remind them why they once did. It happened one rainy night. The sound of thunder masked the faint scuffle of boots in the hallway. A guard, one of Cutter's friends, unlocked the maintenance corridor, turning a blind eye as 3 figures slipped through. Inside, Cutter carried something wrapped in a towel, a sharpened piece of metal, crafted from a broken mop handle and a strip of wire. He whispered, "Tonight we take back control." But what Cutter didn't know was that Leo, who had been cleaning the floor near the hallway, heard every word. Leo ran. His breath echoed down the stairwell as he sprinted toward the cell block. "Ethan," he hissed, pounding on the door. "They're coming. Cutter's got a blade." Ethan was already awake, sitting cross-legged on his bunk. He didn't look surprised. "I was afraid of this," he murmured, standing up. Rex stirred on the lower bunk, frowning. "What's going on?" "Cutter's planning to hurt someone," Ethan said simply. "Maybe me, maybe you." Rex's jaw tightened. "Then we stop him." Ethan turned toward him. "No weapons, no killing, just stop him." Rex nodded. "You got it." Minutes later, the 2 men stepped into the dim corridor. Rain dripped through a cracked window, painting the floor in silver streaks. From around the corner came footsteps, 3 shadows, moving fast. Cutter's voice cut through the dark. End of the line, Sensei. Ethan took a deep breath. It doesn't have to end like this, Cutter. Cutter laughed. You took my respect. I'm just taking it back. He lunged. The blade flashed, slicing air where Ethan's head had been a heartbeat earlier. Ethan twisted, deflecting the strike, his movements calm and measured. Rex lunged to help, but another inmate blocked him. The narrow hallway turned into chaos. Grunts, shouts, the clang of boots and fists. Ethan disarmed Cutter with a clean parry, the metal skittering across the floor. He stepped back, breath steady. It's over, he said. But Cutter didn't stop. He threw a wild punch. Ethan dodged, and that's when Rex caught Cutter from behind, pinning him against the wall. You don't get it, do you? Rex growled. You already lost. Cutter struggled, furious. You used to be one of us. Rex's grip tightened. I still am. I just decided to be better. The words hit Cutter harder than the restraint itself. His strength faltered. When the guards arrived moments later, all they saw was Ethan standing calm, Rex holding Cutter down, and a bloodied weapon on the floor. For once, there was no question who the heroes were. The warden came down personally that night. He was a heavy-set man, usually too busy for inmate business. But this time, he wanted to see it himself. I heard you stopped the stabbing, he said, looking at Ethan. That true? Ethan nodded. We stopped a mistake before it ruined more lives. The warden studied him for a long moment, then turned to Rex. You helped. Rex shrugged, uncomfortable under the praise. Did what needed doing. The warden almost smiled. If more you thought like that, maybe I'd have an easier job. He ordered the guards to move Cutter to solitary, but before they did, Ethan walked over to him. Cutter, he said softly, you don't have to keep living like this. Cutter sneered. Save your philosophy, old man. Ethan didn't reply. He just looked at him, really looked, and something in his gaze made Cutter flinch. As they dragged him away, the hallway fell silent. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. Rex became Ethan's right-hand man during the morning workouts. He helped organize routines, corrective forms, and even convinced the younger inmates to join. People started calling the group the Yard Brotherhood. Instead of lifting weights just to look tough, men began focusing on breathing, control, and balance. It wasn't about fighting anymore. It was about rebuilding. Even the guards noticed a difference. Fights dropped by almost half. Medical reports showed fewer injuries. And for the first time in years, the warden approved an extra hour of recreation time. In a place built on punishment, peace had somehow become contagious. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the fences, Rex and Ethan sat by the bleachers, sharing quiet silence. You ever think about what happens when you get out? Rex asked. Ethan smiled faintly. Every day. Not because I hate this place, but because I want to see if what we started here can survive out there. Rex nodded slowly. Maybe it can. Maybe it's supposed to. Ethan looked at him. What about you? What will you do? Rex chuckled. Don't know yet. But for the first time, I want to find out. There was something honest in that laughter, something free. Later that night, as Ethan walked back to his cell, a folded note lay on his bunk. He opened it. It was from Cutter. You win. Maybe I needed to lose to see things clearer. Thanks for not finishing me when you could have. Ethan read it twice, then folded it gently and set it on the table. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself a small, genuine smile. Word spread quietly through the block. Cutter had requested to join the morning sessions when he got out of solitary. Nobody believed it at first. But a week later, when the doors opened and he walked into the yard, head lowered, Ethan simply nodded and handed him a towel. No judgment, no speeches, just acceptance. Cutter hesitated, then joined the circle. And as the sun rose over the cold concrete walls, the prisoners began their morning stretches. Men from different gangs, races, and pasts, moving in rhythm, bound not by fear but by respect. In a place built to break people, Ethan had done the impossible. He'd taught them how to fix themselves. And as the camera of life slowly pulled back over the razor-wire horizon, one truth stood clear. Redemption isn't about erasing your past. It's about proving to yourself that you can build something better from it. The sky over the prison was pale gold when the morning siren echoed across the yard. But this time, the sound didn't mark another day of routine. It marked the day Ethan Cole would finally walk free. After 6 long years behind bars, the gates that once swallowed him whole were about to open again. He stood by his bunk, folding his few belongings, a notebook full of quotes, a worn towel from training sessions, and a letter signed by almost every inmate in cell block C, a letter thanking him for changing the place they once called a cage. Ethan didn't pack fast. He took his time, as if each fold carried a memory. The fights, the silence, the lessons, the change. Outside, the yard was unusually still. The men were already lined up, waiting for him. Rex stood at the front, arms crossed, his usual swagger softened into something closer to respect. Behind him were Leo, Ramos, Cutter, even the younger inmates who once feared or hated each other. Today they stood side by side. When Ethan stepped into the light, the group didn't cheer or shout. They just nodded. In that silent gesture was everything: gratitude, pride, and the kind of bond words couldn't touch. As Ethan approached, Rex cleared his throat. "Didn't think I'd see this day," he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice cracked just enough to betray the emotion underneath. Ethan smiled faintly. "Didn't think I'd survive to see it either." Rex chuckled, shaking his head. Guess the universe had other plans. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of cloth, a torn strip from one of the old training mats. "Figured you want a souvenir," he said. Ethan took it carefully. "I'll keep it," he said. "Remind me that even broken things can be rebuilt." There was a long pause. The guards were waiting by the gate, but nobody rushed him. Even they seemed to understand that this moment meant more than paperwork or time served. Rex finally spoke again, quieter this time. "You think I'll ever get out?" Ethan looked at him steadily. "You're already halfway there." Rex frowned. "What do you mean?" "Freedom doesn't start when the gates open," Ethan said softly. "It starts when you stop being the person who walked in." Rex looked down, absorbing the words. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel like the leader of a gang. He felt like a man standing at the edge of something new. The gate buzzed open. The sound was cold, mechanical, but to Ethan, it felt like music. He turned one last time toward the men behind him. "Remember what we built," he said. "Keep it alive?" Rex nodded. "We will." As Ethan stepped through, the heavy doors clanged shut behind him. He inhaled the outside air, fresh, real, full of scents he'd forgotten. Rain on asphalt, faint exhaust, the sweetness of spring. For the first time in years, the horizon wasn't blocked by steel. Freedom didn't come easy, though. Ethan had nowhere to go, no family left, no job waiting. But he wasn't lost. He was ready. He found a small apartment near a boxing gym downtown. The owner, an old friend named Marco, offered him work teaching self-defense to kids after school. At first, Ethan was quiet about his past. He just showed up, ran drills, fixed stances, encouraged shy students. But word spread fast. Parents noticed their children weren't just learning to fight. They were learning patience, respect, and discipline. Soon, Ethan wasn't just a trainer. He was a mentor again. Meanwhile, back inside, the Yard Brotherhood lived on. Rex took charge of the sessions, not as a boss, but as a guide. He used Ethan's old lessons: control, breathing, choice. When new inmates arrived, scared and angry, Rex greeted them the same way Ethan once had. Calm, direct, human. "Fear's a choice," he told them. "But so is change." Even the guards noticed the difference. The warden, one skeptical, expanded the training program to other blocks, calling it the Cole Initiative. For the first time, rehabilitation meant something real. Men who once couldn't control their anger were learning to control themselves. And that started because one quiet man refused to fight back. Months later, Rex received a letter through the inmate mail system. The handwriting was familiar. Clean, neat, deliberate. He opened it carefully. "Rex, I've started a small gym here in the city. We work with at-risk kids, the ones walking the same line we did once. They remind me of you in the best way. I tell them about a man who learned that strength isn't about fear, but about choice. If you ever get your chance to walk out those gates, there's a place for you here. Keep building what we started. Ethan. Rex folded the letter slowly. For a long time, he just stared at it, his chest tight with something he hadn't felt since childhood. Hope. 3 years passed. Ethan's gym became known across the city. Reporters came by, curious about the quiet man who turned ex-fighters and ex-cons into teachers and mentors. When they asked him about his secret, he always gave the same answer: teach them control first. Strength comes later. On one rainy evening, as Ethan finished closing the gym, the door opened. A tall man stood there, shaved head, familiar scar above his brow. Rex. He'd finally made parole. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Rex stepped forward, smiling awkwardly. Heard you might have a spot for me. Ethan grinned. Always. They shook hands, and for a second, the weight of the past disappeared. Two men, once enemies, now teachers. Proof that even in the darkest places, something good can grow. In the months that followed, Ethan and Rex ran the gym together. Rex worked with the older teens, the angry ones, the ones who reminded him of himself. He didn't hide his story. Yeah, I was locked up, he told them, but that's not where it ends. You get to write your own next chapter. Ethan watched from across the mat, pride shining quietly in his eyes. He'd done what he came to do, not just survive prison, but plant something that would outlive him. One evening, as the sun set over the city skyline, Ethan stood by the window, the light painting his reflection gold. Rex walked up beside him. You ever think about going back? To visit? Ethan smiled. Maybe someday. But I think the prison's doing fine without me. Rex chuckled. You think? Ethan turned to him, eyes calm as ever. I know. Outside, laughter echoed from the gym floor. Kids training, learning, growing. It sounded nothing like a prison. It sounded like freedom. And in that sound, in every breath, every laugh, every lesson passed on, lived the true legacy of Ethan Cole,